What's up, ADHD crew? Today I want to talk all about nutrition, its impact on ADHD, and realistic approaches to eating in general. Now, disclaimer, I just want to mention that I am not a medical profession or a nutritionist of any kind, but I am going to speak from my personal experience from years of doing this, and also just taking some evidence from studies. And also, please feel free to add any information in the comments below if you think it would be helpful. So let's dive into it. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know that sugar tends to aggravate symptoms of ADHD, and it's pretty common knowledge that it's often a strategy used with children by eliminating processed foods, numbers, and all kinds of bad, unhealthy foods that tend to make the symptoms worse. And while there is scientific evidence and studies to prove that this is absolutely true, you have to look at things in a sort of realistic way that is adaptable and applicable to the modern average person. Now, the point of this video is to talk about consistency of eating well in general. People with ADHD have a really hard time staying consistent with anything in particular, and that also translates into healthy eating. So what do we do when we're trying to treat our ADHD, but also stay on track and not fall off the wagon? First of all, know your motive. Why are you trying to do this? Why are you trying to eat more healthily? It could be for brain function, it could be for better performance, it could be to lose weight, it could be for your overall health. You have to want to do this so that you can stay more motivated and consistent in general. The problem is a lot of people don't want to do this and they're content living the same lifestyle as before, and they don't give themselves a chance to adapt to a new, healthier lifestyle, so they don't really see the changes, they don't see the benefits of it, and they give up too easily in the beginning stages when you tend to go through withdrawals. So the key to treating ADHD through food is sustainability. You have to be able to do this for the rest of your life if you want to stay consistent. In my past video, I did talk about things like low-carb diets and intermittent fasting, but here's the thing. If these diets work for you and you can stick to them, no problem, great, do what works for you. But a lot of people will find that with ADHD, you tend to emotionally eat. You tend to be quite impulsive about the foods that you eat. And there's also a strong tendency for people with ADHD to have addiction issues with all kinds of substances, alcohol, and that also includes food. The problem with any kind of diet is that they're highly restrictive and they eliminate a lot of foods. If you're going to reduce the sugar, you want to do it gradually instead of just doing it cold turkey. Because from my experience, if you do it cold turkey, you're going to skyrocket your cravings, you're going to have all kinds of irritability, mood swings, and it's just going to make your ADHD worse, at least in the beginning stages. What you want to do is gradually taper off the sugar and just adapt an overall lifestyle. So this is going to take several weeks. Eventually, your body will stop producing those cravings and the signals for sugar the more often you do it. The problem with eating sugar is that it causes blood sugar spikes. So that means more problems with attention and consistent motivation with energy. There's a whole host of problems that come with this kind of eating. So one method I find to help is just having smaller, more frequent meals, especially if you're taking medication, so you can reduce any side effects and you can just keep your blood sugar stable throughout the entire day. You can absolutely have the foods that you still enjoy, and I recommend that you do, but it's all about moderation. What I do is give myself an 80-20 rule, which is 80% of the foods that I eat is healthy, whole foods, and the rest is just a bit of what I like it could be cake, crisps, chocolate, sweets, whatever, just because life is too short to completely eradicate these things from your diet. ADHD can be pretty stressful to live with, and when you go on a highly restrictive elimination diet, it can cause you a lot of stress as well, and it can affect your social life and your relationships, which is just hard to deal with in general. So I think a more moderate approach is going to be much more beneficial. And the problem with these diets is that they're very all or nothing. They're very black and white. So if you have issues with anxiety and obsessive compulsive tendencies, it might have the potential to make it worse. So I think that's another point to consider. So another thing that you can do is just make healthy eating more enjoyable. Make it fun by discovering new recipes that you can cook yourself and just looking for alternatives and substitutions as a way of being more healthy. So try to see being more healthy as a goal and a hobby. But the key is to not be so strict that you're hindering yourself and you're being a perfectionist. This is another problem. You don't want to end up hyper-focusing on being perfect. So you have to be careful. You want to look at just the overall picture. There's a lot of evidence also that high protein intake is great for treating ADHD, and what I would recommend is that you start your day off with a high protein meal to control the blood sugar and keep the hunger at bay, because protein tends to be harder to digest, and the amino acids that protein provides the brain is also essential for brain function, and the fatty acids and omega-3s you get from things like fish is proven to be great for treating ADHD as well. It's up to you what diet you eat, but just consider that there may be benefits to having an omnivorous diet, because that way you're making sure that you get everything. You're not going to be deficient at all. Now, carbohydrates boost serotonin levels, and they tend to relax the frontal lobes of the brain, so this is why it makes you feel good. The tricky part is choosing beneficial carbohydrates, such as slow digesting carbs and vegetables and so on. The less processed you can get in your carbohydrates, the better your brain function is going to be. You're not going to have as much brain fog. And just things like gluten might influence it if you've got a bit of an allergy or an intolerance to it. So go to your doctor and check up if there's anything going on there as well. And I find that when you just have a more strategic, sensible approach to eating, you have less issues with things like hunger and insomnia, especially when you eat more fiber and you fill up on these foods. The problem with low-carb diets is that it tends to deplete your glycogen levels, which is a form of energy. There are lots of people that do well on a low-carb diet or a carnivore diet. You've got to try it out for yourself. But this video, bear in mind, is just for the average person who wants to reduce the stress, which means less restrictions and more flexibility. There are a few supplements you could try out if you're interested. So you could try things like 5-HTP or saffron, which help regulate serotonin levels. And there's also things like chromium and magnesium that help regulate appetite. But it's not going to be a miracle cure. You don't need to waste your money on all these things. It's all preference, so it's up to you. You decide what feels right to you.